Okay. Yeah. So, chapter 2, Love unto Crypt. Chapter 2, Bezabih. Bogale Membratu married Windanish Betamo. And after 2 years, they had a baby boy named Bezabih. Bogale and Windanish were from two different worlds and had had many disagreements, arguments, and grimaces ever since they got married. However, since it was possible to make animals like hyenas and donkeys or tigers and goats live together, if God gave longevity and time was given to the custom. So the husband and the wife began to get to know and love each other. And the rope of caring that they had for each other got stronger and stronger. Windanish had come from an affluent family and grown up in a very comfortable situation. Afterward, when she was old enough to get married, she was married 3 different times. And turn after turn, she buried her 3 husbands. Since she noticed the insults and innuendos of the people touching her relatives besides her, she became isolated. After her husbands died, she lived alone, being served by one she servant with the wealth she inherited from her father. May God bless his soul. While she lived alone, she was a queen and a dictator. Before that, her husbands would give her orders, and when they got mad at her, they used to beat her up. But she had servants to order around, get mad at, and beat up. In Bogale Mbratu's house, however, there was one who would give orders to her, but there was no one to whom she could give orders. There was only someone who would get mad at her, but there was no one whom she could get mad at. There was someone who would beat her up, but there was no one whom she could beat up. Madame Windenesh's character got worse. When Mr. Bogali hesitantly told his wife something to be done, or when Mrs. Windenish wanted something, and after her husband showed a slight sign of disagreement, she would get annoyed right away, just like those who used to have everything in abundance and lost it all. She would become susceptible and would start crying. A strange hardship with which one wasn't accustomed would make one susceptible. The good thing was that after Madame Wininish got mad and cried, she would forget everything. On the other hand, Mr. Bogali had come from a poor family and grown up in poverty until he was 30 years of age. He had not been free of hardship. He used to wrestle with hardship. Sometimes he would knock it down, and sometimes he would get knocked down. He had been living with it, and his skin was very strong. Neither insult nor anger would penetrate it. Whenever he faced with minor problems or even with a bigger one, he would accept it with silence and endurance, and then he would try to overcome it. He would never become easily susceptible and hopeless. When someone gets used to hardship, his or her skin becomes thick, his tendons become strong, and his or her muscles become plump. He could carry any load thrown at him. He would overcome whatever hardship he faced. Therefore, thanks to his teacher who raised him up, namely hardship, Mr. Bogale was a man who could endure everybody and anything. Bogale's character, namely his endurance and patience, and not seeing humiliation when he was defeated, along with Windenish forgiveness and her ability to forget the thing she had been so mad about, made it possible for the two to live together and take care of each other. There were, However, those occasions when they would grimace, sulk, and both would curse the day they got married. But such conflicts would happen even between the most affectionate husbands and wives. On one of those occasions, her husband came from his job and asked Windenish if there was something to eat. She told him that Bezabih was sick, and because there was no one to take care of him, the meal was not ready. She prolonged the argument unnecessarily by crying, "O priest Tamru, let God see what you have done. May God punish you by your daughter. You put me in Gehenna while I am alive." Bogale became angry for a short time and stood up to beat her, but he controlled himself, and without speaking a word, he went out with his cane and sat on a hillock behind his house. "You put me in Gehenna," Bogale repeated, staring vacantly in front of him. "What did I say to you? What did I say to you that you made me hear her speak those bitter words?" Bogale said out loud, moving his head up and down, still staring vacantly. When a person spends all day long working and comes home and asks his wife for a meal, is it wrong? Was it a bad word? Should it make her cry? He continued staring out in front of him as if waiting for an answer. Why did I get married? Why did I get married? Why did I get married and build a house and father a child? What is better now than it was in my previous life? Nothing is better for me. Nothing has become easy for me. Rather, it has become worse. I never had to worry about anything, not about a wife, a child, a salt, or a grain. I used to eat simply whatever my Lord would give me. Now I have to worry over what to feed them and worry over clothes for my family. I used to live in peace. My only concern was how I handled the yoke and plow. I only had to worry that the cattle came to no harm and had green grass for grazing. Oh, what a good life I used to have. What a peaceful life. Bogale shook his head, crossed his hands on his knees, and then put his head in his hands. He closed his eyes and he found himself swimming in a sea of thoughts. A sea of thoughts. Its beginning and ending was unknown. He saw his life story, namely his past, present, and future. He became inundated by the thoughts of the sea, which were disturbed by the storm of thought, and he began swimming in it, getting in and out, falling down and getting up. He got scared and he wanted to get out, but he could not, so he kept swimming. In the midst of it, one voice, one little voice, just like one heart touching soft violin's sound that was heard in the evening from a distance, said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." Right away, that storm that was making Mr. Bogale get in and out and fall down and get up as if it was rebuked by that angelic voice and told to stop, stopped at once. "Daddy, da, Daddy, come, me, me." said the voice once again. Please keep quiet now. Now, keep quiet. Daddy will come soon. Dad will come soon, said another voice. It was a woman's voice. The former was his child's voice, and the latter was his wife's. Then, taking his head slightly off from his hands, he turned around and saw the surroundings as he was looking for the source of those voices. There was nothing around the vicinity save his house, so those voices could not be coming from anywhere except his house. Now, he was not looking at the vacant place, but at the house he had built 7 years ago. Then, slightly covering his eyes, he got through the wall of his house and he clearly saw his wife as well as his child. Most of the time, when the physical eyes are closed, the thing that is not seen would be seen. Humans have two kinds of eyes, namely the physical eye and the mind's eye. Most of the time, they do not see together. Even if they do not see clearly. To see what the physical eyes cannot see, it is necessary to open the mind's eye. In order to look for those voices that brought him from the dream world to the real world, Bogali Mbratu stared with his physical eyes and looked. What could be seen? He saw. However, to see what his physical eyes could not see, he closed them and opened his mind's eye. Right away, he saw his wife as well as his child and heard their voices. His house, his wife, his child, and those things that had changed his tranquility and peace. The price of peace, the price of tranquility.
I did not get hurt,
Bogale said, staring and pondering.
I did not get hurt at all. It is a good price.
I was mistaken.
I was not hurt.
Hunger is vicious. Hunger is
Vicious. It passes away.
it, however,
Made me forget and made me behave.
behave just like a naughty child. But
I was not hurt.
oh, why did you create my stomach?
My lord.
Bogale said, regretting that he disappointed his wife who gave him his home. She gave him dignity, his home, child, and love, simply because he was hungry. Bogale said, regretting that he disappointed his wife who gave him his home, dignity, child, and love, simply because he was hungry. Afterward, he remembered some of last week's sermon. It was a long sermon about fasting, self control, and marriage, which was given by Alak Belay. The difference between humans and animals is not that humans walk on 2 feet. Even a chick walks on its 2 feet. Well, then, it is the language that makes humans different from animals.
No. Animals have
Their own languages as well.
The main difference between humans and animals.
Animals is man's ability to control. Humans differ because they can control their hunger,
Greed, adultery.
and other similar feelings that they share with animals. If a man were pushed by hunger to eat whatever he wishes, to possess whatever he has seen, or to have sex with any woman he wishes, he would become an animal and not a human. Since man is created with the union of flesh and spirit, he is the battlefield where secular and spiritual feelings come alternately and incessantly. Man must fight and struggle constantly. In this battle, when the spirit becomes victorious, It will prevent all desires of the flesh. If the human spirit becomes strong and can defend itself from the desires of the flesh, man will be cleansed from fleshly sin and wretchedness. Then he can approach his heavenly God and speak to him in prayer and be the associate of righteousness ones. And be the associate of righteous ones. This is the main reason why fasting has been established. Fasting will make the flesh weak and the spirit strong to prevent the fleshy desires and words that would change you into animal. Fasting will give man self control. Fasting makes one's flesh tire and prevents him from thinking and then committing bad things. If man is prevented from pondering and doing bad things, he will then be the associate of the righteous and the friend of angels. Does fornication mean having sexual intercourse with a woman with whom one is not married? No. Divorcing and getting married repeatedly is considered fornication. In the name of holy and blessed matrimony, changing a woman, divorcing, and getting married repeatedly and calling it holy marriage is hardly different from fornication. When God created man and woman and established marriage and ordered them to fill the earth, he meant that he would not create another man and woman and establish another law. He established this law because when the first man and woman lived their lives and passed away, they had produced another man who would fulfill man's course and another woman who would fulfill woman's course. The new ones would live by the law he had established. God had ordered that man should follow this law, and this would not be changed for all eternity. Therefore, controlling oneself, preventing fleshly desire, honoring marriage, and finally, producing children to transfer God's law into the next generation are the orders of God. Mr. Bogale was still sitting on the hillock, covering up his eyes and opening up his mind's eye to see and listen to Alak Belay's sermon that he gave last Sunday. Bogale could also see the way Alak Belay was preaching. He could see that Alak pointing his fingers, bending his knees, gesturing with his hands, left and right and up and down, making his face smile and then look stern. Mr. Bogale took the Alak's sermon in and then exhaled while saying,
Oh,
he said aloud,
from what he said,
the main thing is if a man cannot control himself, if he cannot control his adulterous nature and greediness, he is not better than a cow. That is true. A man who cannot control himself will not be called a man. This
I see.
But the other was just to prolong his preaching. For example, the thing he preached about fasting. I will have to think further about what he said about it. If a man fasts until he becomes tired or even until he dies, then he will die just as he is.
Being a man,
But I do not think he would be a friend of the angels, no matter how scholarly a man is, when
he
he
speaks too much.
all he has spoken cannot be useful. It is just like
Grain, for example,
the grain from a pile of crops will not be greater than the maximum amount of a small granary. The rest is chaff. Bogali stretched out his arms. Then he thought of what his wife had said while weeping. Without moving his eyes, he stared at his house. He spent some time thinking. Though he stared at the house, he was looking only at his wife, weeping, not at the house.
Yes, she deserved to be annoyed.
And to weep. If she would not be annoyed, who would? If she would not cry, who would? She used to have plenty of everything, servants to send on errands, a mule to carry a load.
She used to be a madam having all these.
Now she lost all of them, and for her, this is a bad time. Who would not be susceptible but she? Time has betrayed her, and it became against her. However, was not she the daughter of a lord? And wasn't she,
She a madam over me.
though I was hungry, I was guilty because I did not keep quiet considering her problem.
Let me go and ask her.
Forgiveness. Bogale stood up, and dragging his cane, he went to his house. When Bogale went into his house, Windanish was putting a clay saucepan on the upper stove and a clay griddle disc on the lower stove. She was carrying the child on her left side and rushing to prepare dinner. Aya Bogale, did you come? When I went to the other room and got you some roasted grain until dinner was prepared, you disappeared. Since the child has been sick, he has been naughty all day long and was disturbing me. Besides, when you came in earlier, you said that I'd never care about you. This is why I was angry. Well, never mind. For now, sit and snack on roasted grain, Windanish said. There was roasted barley. Its hulls were removed. The pulverized nigger seed on the basketwork disc was next to the fire round the medib, the MEDEB, the deb. When Bogali went and sat on the deb, his wife put Bezabih near his father, and she went to the larder.
She has already forgotten.
Forgotten that she wept bitterly. She has forgiven me. Oh, if only he made my heart like hers, Bogali said in his thoughts. Windanish brought Tella in a wide goblet, and she sipped it in front of her husband. Take this, though it is not sweet. It will quench your thirst, she said gently, laughing. When she laughed, she had a special beauty that would alarm one. Rogale took the goblet from his wife and swallowed once.
My dear,
Bogale called when his wife stared at it, walking to her girdle. When Windanish turned around, he saw the corners of her lips going to the right and left and exposing his scattered, beautiful teeth. His eyes were painted with a little embarrassment, as those of a man whose bad deed was exposed. She knew what that look meant, and returning to her husband, she said, "What?" Even her face showed the feelings of love and happiness that she felt. It was showing just like a clear mirror. Her eyes, like a bad person's eyes, hardly knew where to rest, and they were wandering. Windanish was always beautiful and charming, even when she was at her poorest and worst time of her life, having lost all her wealth. Holding his wife's right hand, he pulled her slightly, and she fell into his embrace. Right away their lips met. There is an injera on the girdle disc. It's going to get burned black, she said, putting her head on her husband's chest and looking at him.
don't worry
About it. Let it get burned black, he said, holding his beautiful wife on his chest tightly, as if he was worried that she wouldn't come back if he let her go. Afterward, when Windinesh went to the girdle disc, Bezabih said,
Daddy.
and smacked his lips to tell his father that he wanted to get kissed as well. He wanted his daddy to kiss him as he did his mother, Bogali laughed, and lifting him up, he kissed him repeatedly. Ay Bogali, Ay Bogali, oh Ay Bogali, look what you have done, Windiness said when she lifted the mugda and opened the girdle disc, as if the injera got burned black only by the deed of Bogali.
Did it get burned
Black? Bogali asked. You asked if it got burnt black. It's become like charcoal, rather. Forget it. Don't worry about it. And let it become burnt black. I'm not worried about the injera, but I am worried about the girdle disc being marred. Why would it become marred? Once one injera is burnt black on a girdle disc, two or three injera might be marred, and after that, it would be impossible to bake a good injera right way. Well, then, so be it. Well, then, I guess that is the consequence. Windanish and Bugale were an affectionate husband and wife. However, because of the differences of the situations they had been born into, the ways they had grown up, and the situations they had lived through, they had plenty of conflicts and grimaces, especially in the beginning of their marriage. The good thing was that since it was a new love that would come following the grimaces, their love was growing stronger and stronger, and their conflicts could pass away without either of them harboring grudges. It was known that the conflict that would be created between a husband and wife who loved each other would create a new love and would make them love each other more and more. And the conflict that would be created between a husband and wife who would not love each other would add grudge upon grudge, and finally they would end in separation. Chapter 3: The Son of a Vow. From his birth to the age of 3, Bezabih had not had good health. By the end of his first 3 months, he had suffered from measles. When he was 6 months old, it was the whooping cough. By the end of his first year, he again suffered from measles. For this reason, his parents were discouraged and thought he would die. Since he suffered from so many different sorts of diseases since his birth, his parents named him Bezabeh, which means you suffered a lot. Whenever Bezabeh became sick, his parents were hopeless about his survival, but finally his health would return to him. In the beginning, when he was sick with measles, he had a high fever that burned just like a fire. He was tossing and turning in bed, gasping, moving his small feet and hands, wandering about his eyes and looking at his mother and father. In this manner, he appeared to be looking for a place to flee and to hide in from death. Why, Mother of Christ? Windanish asked. Why did you give him to me, and why do you try to take him away? What is my sin that you refuse to leave him with us after you have given him? Her tears were flooding down as she went on. Please send your mercy, my mother, my honey. If you save him, he will be your servant all his life. He will burn incense in your church. I will raise him up in a school in order that he will always be your slave and servant. Let it be my vow. Mr. Bogale, however, was confused because the foundation on which he made his happiness was disturbed. Holding the edge of the gabi and moving, he was chasing away the flies from the baby's face. Yet he said nothing. Mrs. Windanish had a tear running down her face and was imploring Christ's mother to save the child. It is not right to take after you have given. To refuse once you have shown it is not good. She is right about it. However, There's one thing I do not agree with, and except from what she has said, my son is my support. He will care for me
when my strength becomes
exhausted and my eyes are unable to see. It is hardly possible to vow and give him to the ark. It is not something
even to think of. But let him recover anyway. Let him recover.
She has said it since she is worried. Mr. Bogale was saying and criticizing inwardly. Mrs. Windenish continued to worry, and Mr. Bogale was criticizing the situation. Bezabih's feet, hands gradually stopped tossing and turning. His breath became sluggish, and his eyes stopped wandering left and right, and opened and closed until he lost consciousness. Mrs. Windenish was covered in a cold sweat. Aya Bogale, she cried. Is it his end? Is this the conclusion to his life? Is he about to die? Mr. Bogale put his ear closer to the sick child's nose and stayed there for a while. Then, flashing his scattered teeth and straightening up slightly, he said,
No,
it is sleeping. It is
breathing.
Mrs. Windenish's heart, which had stopped, began to function again. Her blood began to warm and circulate, and her lungs let out a big breath. Thank you, St. Gabriel, Mr. Bogale said, while standing and silently he went outside. Mrs. Windenish stayed in the room, and as she noticed the child's eyes were slightly ajar, she sat right there watching him. He slept deeply for nearly 2 hours, and when the sick baby awoke, he opened his empty mouth as wide as possible, and as if all that was taking place was just a joke, he began laughing. Thank you, my mother, the honey. What is your price, mother? What can I do to repay you? What should be done? Simply thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my mother. The honey. What is your price, mother? What can I do to repay you? What should be done? Simply thank you. Thank you. Windenish said, raising her eyes toward the roof. When Bezabih became sick at other times, his parents were discouraged because of the seriousness of the disease, and his mother vowed to him one time to, and his mother vowed him one time to Saint Mariam and to Saint George, and other times to Saint John, Saint Michael, and Saint Gabriel, either because of the saints or because the fiber he was made of was strong. He resisted and defeated death and was able to grow up. Mr. Bogale wanted to teach his son how to organize the plow parts and to make the seed agree with the soil in order that he could take over for him. However, Mrs. Windenish believed that the growth of her son was due to her vows. So she wanted him to serve according to her vows. Therefore, when Bezabih finished his 5th year and was about to turn 6, his mother wanted to send him to school. On the other hand, Ayabo Gale wanted him to be hired as a shepherd of calves or goats. This became a new conflict between the couple.
By the way,
Bugale began one day. If I happen to understand,
and you
have made a vow
vow to give him
at least to
7 different churches,
and he is to go to all the different
churches. If he does not serve one church,
while he is serving another one, then the churches will battle just as you and I are
battling now,
I fear that a new conflict will be raised among them.
as well.
The illiterate person's ignorance will be revealed when he tries to be smart, is the proverb of Priest Tamru. Mrs. Windenish said and laughed, remembering Priest Tamru's word. I knew my ignorance before you told me, but give me an answer to my question. I made a vow to 7, but even if I made a vow to 100 churches, Bezabih would not need to go to all the different churches to serve them. He can serve them all while he is here, without leaving his own country, without leaving Mancusa. Yes, without leaving Mancusa. How could he? It is enough to serve the ark that I made my vow by serving, namely, by saying the night prayer and smoking the incense for them on the day they are celebrated here in Mancusa. Ah, wait for a moment. Is not the ark of Mancusa St. Michael? Yes, it is. Well, while he is serving the Church of St. Michael, how can his service reach to the other churches? It can reach them. It could reach them, is what I said to you. Shut up, since you cannot understand. Is not it the customary thing? Mrs. Windenish said, slightly angry. Yes. Look, when you cannot explain, your anger is your main protection. Please, without you being angry, let's talk calmly. You have seen it ever since your birth. The thing that makes me angry is that you are debating with me because your intentions are not fulfilled. Whether I believe in what I am talking about or not, only God and I know, not you. Therefore, let's forget about it now. And what is the thing that I have known ever since my birth to my old age? Here in St. Michael's Church, have not you seen when the Mass was said and the incense burned, and when a prayer in the night was said for St. Miriam and for the others? Yes, I have seen, but it is not right. Oh, my scholar. Okay, change the rule that has been decreed by the scholars and by God.
Let anyone decree it. However, in my opinion, serving or
Saying a Mass for St. George in St. Michael's Church is like praising Mr. Mariam during the wedding of Mr. Gabriel Mariam, Mr. Bogali said, laughing. Okay, you, the scholar, decree it by saying that you have changed the rule that has been working for many years. When the rule is changed, everything will stop. However, until then, what I say will work. In St. Michael's Church, when the Mass has been said for St. George or St. Mariam, the ministerial servants do not have to be virgins, unlike you said. Now you bring up the I try to persuade you, but when I explain it to you, you leave the subject and go to another subject. What shall I do? I said it because I am worried, said Mr. Bogali. He was showing worry and sorrow on his face as he talked to his wife. Why do you worry? Asked his wife.
I fear this child should have many terrible accidents
May God let it not happen.
happen.
What kind of accidents? What trouble will happen to him because he is the minstrel of the church?
No, not because he is serving the church.
Virgins are not the only people to serve the church. A priest who has a wife and own a house can serve as a debtera. As for Bezabih, you said he would be a virgin all his life. This is the thing that I fear.
Namely, when he becomes an adult
And wants to get married and build a house and father a child,
he will be chastised when he breaks his virginity to satisfy his desires.
because of this, even if he gets forgiveness from the church,
The other people will laugh at him In our country, if a person breaks his virginity,
just as a priest who breaks his priesthood, it is considered a terrible mistake, even worse than
a thief is, for example,
priest Pharaoh. Since he divorced his wife, he could not be a witness. He was not chosen to reconcile
and meditate and he was insulted and was treated
lightly. He
finally
had to leave his own country
and finally
became good for nothing in another country. I'm afraid this kind of thing will happen to our son. Will this kind of problem happen to a person who serves the church with his virginity? Or are you saying this kind of problem would happen to him since he is our son? You raised the situation that happened to priest Fer, but I raised the situation that happened to priest Pharaoh,
not because he was a virgin,
but to explain what could happen to him if he wanted to break his virginity. You said if he would break his virginity, why would he? He wouldn't break it. Mrs. Windenish retorted.
When he wants to get married,
to build a house, and to own
property. Why did I get married?
Why do all other people get
married?
Is not it because they want
to? He too, just like others,
may want to get married. Did not God create
him as human as all other people?
He does not want to, Mrs. Windenish said. She was still angry.
No problem, Windenish. Don't be angry.
Let's sell these 2 weak oxen and give the money to the church that you made your vow to, and your vow will be repealed. Instead of being a farmer and shepherd, as I said before, let him join school, and if he wants to, let him become married. Let him become a married priest or dera. After that, let him be whatever he chooses to be. All that you say is like the story of Netu Taye, Swindenish said, laughing slightly. The husband knew the story of Nwetu Taye, and he too slightly smiled, even though he felt unhappy. There was a man named Nwetu Taye. Netu had lost his ox once upon a time. He went to St. Michael's Church and made a vow in order to get his lost ox back. Having made a vow, when he came out of the church, he found his lost ox grazing on the grass outside the compound of the church. He was very concerned due to the fact that he made his vow unnecessarily. And after he found his ox, he went back to St. Michael's Church and said, St. Michael, I found my ox. Do not get tired uselessly. Having broken his vow, when he returned to his ox, he found that the hyenas were eating it up. Once again crying, he went to the church and said to St. Michael, I will give you what I had vowed. Please give me my ox, my only ox. Listening to this, St. Michael replied to Netu Taye, do not get tired uselessly, Netu Taye. I do not take back what I have already given. I have given your ox to the hyenas now. You know the finale of Nwetu Taye. Are you saying we should repeat it? Said Mother Windinesh. No, I said let's give something in exchange for the vow that you have already made. What if my son dies? Asked Miss Windinesh, turning to her husband, since what her husband said smote her heart, and since she was wavering a bit, she felt fear, and her eyes became filled with tears, because her wavering, she thought she might bring some accident that she wouldn't know about upon her son if the saints became indignant. Mr. Bugale lowered his head and became silent, not because he agreed with his wife's thought, but because he could not make her understand his feelings. He bowed his head and remained silent, being sad. No, said Miss Windnish, also bowing her head. She was thinking for a moment. No, we have made a vow to the arcs. Let them think for him what is good for him. Let them lead him in a good way. Let it be. Let it be. Let's not become bereaved parents, but let it be. Let it be.
I have
Endeavored to make you understand.
understand my feelings.
However, either because I am
Hardly dexterous.
in speech or because you just do not understand,
We do not agree. Well,
let it happen as you said. What I am begging God for
for is to make my feeling
vanity and your belief,
true.
Mr. Bugale said, and went out.